Elevate yourself. Empower others. Welcome to Coach Approach Podcast. He's been featured in Harvard Business Review, New York Times, CNN Money, Entrepreneur, and countless stages around the world. Mr. Chuck, it's an honor. Welcome to the show.
Thanks, Marco. It's great to have you be with you today.
You build businesses on multiple continents and help thousands of founders escape the tyranny of the urgent. When you look back, what were the key turning points that shaped your philosophy of business and life?
Great question, Marco. My key turning points have never been things I thought or things I learned or things I read. They've been experiences.
Mm.
And the key turning points for me were building my own businesses. In my fifth business, we started with three of us, and we were all working 60 hours a week. And 3 years later, there were 100 plus of us, 110, 120 people, and I was still working 50 to 60 hours a week. And I remember sitting in my chair saying, how did that happen? How is it that three of us needed to work 60 hours a week? And when there's 120 of us, we're still doing it because we had distributed so many of the tasks. I learned later we didn't distribute the responsibilities, but it was like, this isn't working. This is my fifth business. And every time I build a business, the faster the business goes, the faster my treadmill goes, and the more of a hostage I am to my own businesses. I build these prisons for myself, and I can't get out of them. And so even if I'm making money, somebody else is enjoying that money. I don't have time. And I just remember sitting there saying, we sold that business, and I remember saying, I'm not going to do this again. I don't know how this is going to work, but the next business is going to give me both time and money, not just money. I'm going to somehow figure that out. And I looked at guys like Richard Branson and other well-known people, and a guy from my hometown who owned a small business with 11 people who always seemed to have time,
Mm.
even though he was the business owner. And I was thinking, somebody has figured this out. I've seen it happen. I've watched it. I know it personally, and I've seen it in people like Richard Branson. I'm going to figure out, how do I build a business that makes me more money in less time? So that became the driving question. That was the turning point for me to ask myself that question. How do I make more money in less time? Because we all think that the only way to make more money is to spend more time at work. That's not true, but that's what we think is true. And so that led me to my next experiential statement that I learned, that I probably say to myself at least twice a week and to other people twice a week. You get what you intend, not what you hope for. I intended to build a big business, and I hoped I would get a life. You don't get what you hope. I built a business that made money, and I did not get a life as a result. And so I had to flip that on its head and say, my next business, I intend to use this business to build my ideal lifestyle in support of my lifetime goals. And that became the turning point for me. So I invested all my energies starting that sixth business, figuring out, how do I do this in a way that will make me more money in less time? And I learned things. I built tools for myself. I used these tools for myself. I built principles and practices and tools, and those became my first book. A couple years later, Making Money is Killing Your Business. And that was the #1 rated business book of the year, beating out books by really well-known authors like Seth Godin and Bo Burlingham. And it was, it wasn't a book built on theory. It was a book built on life. I said in the preface of that book, this is not a book I wrote. This is a life I've lived. So I'm just going to write down what has worked for me, and I hope it works for you too. And that was close to 20 years ago, and we've been helping thousands of business owners ever since figure out how to make more money in less time. And
Mm.
I and your podcast is the coach approach. So I want to say to those people who are listening, because coaches are well known for saying, "Oh yeah, but nobody can replace me because I'm the coach." Well, let me tell you, the sixth business, the first one where I was able to make more money in less time, was a coaching business. And so you don't have an excuse. Coaches can do this too, and we can show you how.
Yeah, yeah,
And
yeah.
it comes to mind. I'll share it. One coach who called me from California. We lived in Colorado at the time. He read my first book. He said, "I make $1 million a year as a coach, but I'm working 50 hours a week." And so
Mm.
we worked on that for about a year. And he called me last month, 2 months ago, and he said, "My business is now a $120 million a year coaching business. And he takes home around 10 million, and he works about 20 hours a week at most." So
That
yeah, he's no smarter than he was, Marco, and I was no smarter than I was. What changed? My intention. I went from intending to build a really strong business and thinking that would give me a life, and I went to intending that I would get a life and to build a business to give me that.
so the level of intention or that place of intention is the main place or space where the things is happening.
Yeah. Yeah, Marco, I used to be a John Wayne rugged individualist kind of guy. And that kind of stuff sounded like woo-woo crap and nonsense to me. But it's not. I realize that everything springs from how we view the world around us and how we understand the world and how we intend to interact with the world. It very much is this mindset that we have in between our ears. So here's the simple difference that happened between business number five and business number six. In business number five, I intended to make money. Businesses one through five, I intended to make money. In business six, my intention switched to I intend to build a business that makes money. So
Mm.
let me say that again. Mindset for the first five, I intend to make money. Mindset in the sixth one on forward, I intend to build a business that makes money. I'm not the one making the money anymore. The business is going to do this. And my manic obsession was to figure out, how do I build a coaching business that makes money when I'm not there? When I'm gone on Fridays or Mondays or the last week of the month or the month in the summers. And that became my intention. I intended in that business to get a day a week a month, and a month a year to get up in the morning and say, what should I do today? Every Friday, a week, the last week of the month, and a month a year. And I ended up getting 2 days a week a month, and a month a year to get up in the morning and say, what should I do? And people think, well, you go on vacation all that time. No, people who know me, I started other businesses. It's about choice, Marco. Freedom is the ability to choose. That's all it is. Do I have to go to work today on Monday or Friday, or do I get to? Or could I ride my bike? So I made sure that my schedule never has anything on Mondays or Fridays or the last day of the week or the last week of the month. And then there's a month out of the year that I don't have anything scheduled. Sometimes I use that time for business and sometimes I do other things. It's a
Mm.
mindset game.
And from that point of view, you get like a step back, but you have a broader perspective and you saw the business outside. And what did you do? You hire or train people who became leaders of your business.
Yes. So if you decide to switch to an intention of building a business that makes more money in less time, it is going to necessarily require that you change a lot of other mindsets that you have in order to get there. So if you want to make more money in less time, one of the first things you have to begin to believe is you are not the most important person in the world. And you are not the most important person in your business. The second thing you have to believe is somebody else can actually do what you're doing, and they can probably do it better for the most part.
Mm.
I call this a bad case. Most business owners and coaches have a bad case of the nobodies. It's a business disease. The
Mm.
nobodies. Nobody's as good. Nobody's as educated. Nobody's as experienced. Nobody's as committed. Nobody's as knowledgeable. I can't find anybody who's as good as me.
Mm.
As long as you have that attitude, that's exactly what will happen. You will find no one as good as you. When you start to truly believe that there's people out there who can coach as well as you do and maybe better, then they'll start to show up. They were already there. You just couldn't see them. Now, that's not to say there might not be some things that nobody else could do. So the content that I build, I think somebody can build. Plenty of people have built content as good as mine, but they haven't built mine. So I can build my content and my books and my training programs and courses and my way of doing things. But there are other people who I have now who actually deliver it much better than I do. And
Mm.
until you get that mindset that other people can be as good or better than you, you're never going to get off the dime. You're always going to be a hostage to your business. And there's a number of other mindsets like that that have to be tackled for us to stop being what I call an income producer. I'm going to make money and start becoming a business owner. I'm going to build a business that makes money. Most 90+% of business owners are not business owners. They're income producers. And you can prove it by telling them, well, go away for 2 weeks and see what happens.
Mm.
Business starts to fall apart. Yeah, well, that's because unless you're there, the income, the revenue doesn't come in.
You've been saying for years that people don't need to be managed, they need to be led. What is the core misunderstanding leaders still have about people, autonomy, and motivation?
Yeah, it's a great question. The core misunderstanding is that they conflate people with things. They think people are just another thing. And
Mm.
so they're human capital. They're an asset. They're one of the things that we own in order to make our business run. That is the key problem. And that comes from the industrial age, where we took people out of their shops and put them into factories and attached them to machines. And then in 1911, Frederick Winslow Taylor wrote a paper. Now, you may not know who Frederick Winslow Taylor is, but most people know who Stanley Drucker or Peter Drucker is. Peter Drucker, one of the great management consultants of the 1990s, said this. Uh, Frederick Winslow Taylor had more impact on the 20th century than Freud, Darwin, and Marx. So who was this guy? He wrote a paper in 1911 called Scientific Management, and he defined for the modern management company the mindset, the understanding of what an employee would be and how to manage them. And he made two fatal assumptions in that paper. Fatal assumption number one: people are stupid. And he says that people are so stupid they more people are so stupid that they more resemble the ox than any other type. If you ever heard the statement, that guy's as stupid as an ox, it comes from that paper. And the second fatal assumption he said was that people are lazy. And he called it soldiering. Unless someone is lording over them, they will not work. For thousands of years, they worked in their farms and their shops all by themselves with nobody lorded over them. But somehow they're now stupid and lazy. And if that's true, Marco, how do you solve that? If most people are stupid and lazy, you have to find the rare individual who is smart and motivated and lord them over the stupid and lazy ones to force them to work. And thus management was born. And that's where management comes from. Now, I would say that all things are stupid and lazy. Computers, processes, financial systems, trucks. It doesn't matter. If it's a thing, it is stupid. It'll only do what you tell it to do. Even AI is stupid. It'll only do what you tell it to do. And it's lazy. If I put my coffee cup down on the table, it's not going to move until I move it. So we have to understand the difference. That's why we have to say manage stuff, lead people, because stuff is stupid and lazy. It needs to be managed. I do not need to be managed. I need to be led. What's the difference, you might ask? There's two or three different things that define a leader from a manager. Number one is managers tell, leaders ask. I'm
Mm.
going to tell you what to do. Here's my process. I'm going to tell you what to do. Now go do it. And a leader's going to say, what do you guys think we should do? And he's going to work with them to define the process because input equals ownership. So leaders ask, managers tell. And the second thing is managers decide. Leaders train other people to decide, and then they get the heck out of the way. You know you have a leader because they become replaceable. They become irrelevant. That's the job of a leader, is to make this thing run without them. And again, nobody can build a business on management because it'll never run without you. Managers are always irreplaceable. Leaders become replaceable at some point.
What's one example of a company you worked with that truly embraced participation age principles and what changed for them?
Sure. There's a company in California with 300 programmers it was a very top-down company, and the CEO got a hold of my stuff and invited me out, and we spent a year and a half getting them to the place where they had no managers. I mean, no managers. They had leaders, but managers, you need about one manager for every 7 to 10 people. You need one leader for about every 35 to 50 people.
Mm,
So with attrition, they didn't fire anybody. There were managers who just left because they did not want to ask questions. They wanted to tell people what to do. They were used to being the king and they wanted to go somewhere else and be the king. So managers left and they just weren't replaced. And the teams took over a lot of the managers' responsibilities and began to do things. And people found out the teams were smart. The teams were actually smarter than the one manager. You put 7 people on a problem versus one person on the problem, you're going to come up with a better solution. So it took them about a year and a half to get to where they had no managers anywhere in the place, and they had dropped to about one leader to every 40 people. And we call it the management tax. It eliminated this huge bloat in the middle of their business that was just costing them money. Because one of the problems with managers is they do nothing that produces money. Here's the weird, fatal assumption around management. People actually think the reason they need managers is because if you have a manager over those 7 people will then become so productive that they will not only pay for the manager's salary, but then they'll produce more for the company. And so we need a manager so that these people will produce more. There's not a single study in the history of research on companies that shows that a manager over 7 to 10 people actually makes them more productive. I can show you quite a few studies that says they make them less productive.
interesting.
And I'll share with you that there are hundreds of large corporations like this. General Aviation, GE Aviation, they have 7 or 8 manufacturing plants, and they don't have managers. Let's see who else. A company in Brazil called Semco. They've gone from 300 to 1,000 to 2,000 people. Not since the 1980s, they've never had a single manager in the whole place, and they're one of the most profitable plants in South America. The average there, it's a factory, and the average turnover in factories is around 35 to 40% a year, meaning that's how many people leave every year. 35 to 40% of the people leave. In this place, 1 to 1.5 to 2% of people leave every year. I mean, that alone will save you a lot of money. Why is it that everybody stays? It's because they have a brain. They were given their brains back, and now they're actually managing themselves and helping lead the company. And you got factory workers helping lead the company. It's a magnificent thing. I could give you dozens of other companies like this that people like W.L. Gore, the people who make Gore-Tex. Uh,
Mm.
since the 1950s, not a single manager in the whole place. And it's a $3 billion company with 10,000 people, no managers. So we can easily prove that managers are not necessary by just simply looking at the hundreds of large corporations and the thousands of small ones that don't have any.
In making money is killing your business. You talk about business as a vehicle to build your ideal life, not the other way around. Uh, can we go a little bit deeper? Why do so many founders build a business that traps them instead of frees them?
Yeah. So much of what, another great question. So much of what we understand about business comes from the industrial age. And for around societal pressures and principles that come from the 17, 18, 1900s. There's this thing called the Protestant ethic that rules most of Europe and the US. And tenet number one of the Protestant ethic says a good man, women don't work, a good man works hard. Well, tenet number four of the Protestant ethic says if a good man works hard, he or she will be in charge of their destiny. We ignore that one. We just assume that the job of a person is to work their butt off, and if they're not working, they have no worth. That's problem number one. Problem number two in that is that the industrial age taught us that the goal was money. Even today, I know so many people flash through my mind, they hate their job. They're only doing it because of the money. And that's been the case since they took the cobblers out of their own shops and threw them into factories and made them put a nail on the left boot. Those guys didn't want to be there, but it was the only way they could make money. And so money became the goal of work. The reality of it is money is not a goal, it is a resource. But we have forgotten that. Money is when you have money, then you ask yourself, why do I have money? And what will I do with the money? So it's a resource. And if you don't have any, then you can't finish your why or your what. But if you have time, money, the three resources in life are time, money, and energy. And we think of them as goals. I want more time. No, you don't. Because if you have more time and you don't know what to do with it, you won't get more time. And if you say you want more money, but you don't know what to do with it to actually make the world a better place, you won't get more money. Energy, same thing. So these are resources that we get to build our ideal lifestyle. There's a formula I use this to do this. T plus M plus E equals S. Time plus money plus energy equals the ability to build a significant life. The more time, the more money, the more energy I have, the more I can have this life of significance, whatever I want that to be, whether it's building 20 businesses or solving world hunger or being a great mom. The more time, the more energy, and the more money I have, the more ability I have to be to live into that. So we use, and on the back of that book, I said we use our business to build our ideal lifestyle. And I actually felt guilty doing that in my fifth business. It felt like that's not why you build a business. You build a business to make money. No, you actually should build every business like Richard Branson does to build a great lifestyle.
Mm.
And your great lifestyle might include dozens of businesses, or it might include one small business with 10 people, and you get a lot of time, money, and energy from as a result of that.
Can you tell me what shift must happen for entrepreneurs to get off the treadmill and back to meaning and contribution?
Yeah, it's back to that thing we said up front. The biggest shift is a mindset shift from being an income producer where you think your job is to build a business that makes money, or your job is to make money. Shift from being an producer to a business owner who says, I'm not going to do this. I'm going to build a business that does this, whatever this is. I'm not going to make the chairs. I'm going to build a business that makes the chairs. Now I hear a lot of people in the background in your podcast saying, "Yeah, but I love making chairs." Great. What if you got to make chairs and you didn't have to? That's
Mm.
freedom. I'm not saying you should stop making chairs, but you should stop having to make chairs. Otherwise, you are a prisoner, you are a hostage to your business because I have to do this in order to pay my mortgage. What if you could take a month off from making chairs and go on vacation or go start another business or whatever you want to do, and then come back and make chairs because you want to? And you make
Mm.
chairs on Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays because you want to. Choice. This is about choice. It's a mindset that says I'm no longer going to be an income producer who makes money. I'm going to build a business and figure out how to make money by letting the business make it for me.
Your work with 3 to 5 clubs has helped entrepreneurs build maturity in their business in a few years instead of decades. What are the most common patterns you see in founders who break through versus those who stay stuck?
Yeah, and to back up a second, we call it 3 to 5 club because when I first put this together 20 years ago, I thought I did it myself. I started a business and I thought within 3 to 5 years, I ought to be able to get at least some time regularly, like every Friday. And so I set this goal of building a business. And 4 years later, I took the mean between 3 and 5. And I said, 4 years to the day from that day, I'm going to be taking every Friday off, and the business will make money on Fridays when I'm not there.
Mm.
And so that's what 3 to 5 came from. It turns out that if you have a going business, if you've been in business for 4 or 5 or 6 or 8 or 10 years, probably more like 1 to 3 years. But I did it from the printing of a business card. It should take you no more than 3 to 5 years to get to where you have every Friday off and the thing's making money. You might not be making all the money or all the time you want in 3 to 5 years, but you can be making some time along with some money. So the people who do that, you can see right away who's going to be successful and who isn't. And the difference is a couple of different mindsets. One is dreamers versus visionaries. And I use this clever little statement: dreamers talk, visionaries walk.
Mhm.
They start applying immediately. We talk about the four building blocks of a business. And the building block number one is, why are you in business? Really, why are you in life? The big why, your lifetime goals. I can see right away that the ones who are going to get there, if they don't already have their lifetime goals, and most of them don't because the industrial age beat it out of them, you're not supposed to have personal big lifetime goals. They immediately go out and figure out what their lifetime goals are, and the other people start dreaming about, thinking about maybe doing that. And then the people who are going to get there, they put together a, we have our second building block is a two-page strategic plan, not business planning, because business planning doesn't work. It's a simple little plan to help you figure out what you should do today in order to get where you want to be a year from now and 5 years from now. And those people start enacting that plan and they start walking it out instead of talking about it. And they start planning. And the third thing is they start figuring out how quickly can they begin to get some time off in your business. The dreamers will say, I can't wait. I set my business maturity date for 3 years from today. And I can't wait to be there because then I'll be free. The people who are actually going to be successful say, I set my business maturity date for 3 years from now. And that means 3 months, within 3 months, I'm going to be showing up an hour later, 2 days a week. And then 3 months later, I'm going to show up 2 hours later, 2 days a week. And they begin to practice their business maturity date immediately. When I went to, I took a month. After 4 years, I took a month and my wife and I went to New Zealand. And people think, man, how did you do that? Well, I didn't just do that. 6 months before, about 5 months before I left, I took 2 weeks off to see how it would work. And then we had to repair some things. And a year before that, I was regularly taking a week off. And a year before that, 3 years before, I was regularly taking Fridays and Mondays off. So you don't just show up at that date, flip a switch, and things happen. No, you got to get your business in order, start doing the mapping of the processes, and that's the third building block is mapping processes so that other people can do this when you're not there. So that's the thing. They get moving right away and they start doing things right away that will actually help them get there 4 years from now instead of talking about it.
What role does community and accountability play in speeding up business maturity?
Well, I think it's huge. Again, I'm a recovered John Wayne rugged individualist. I used to think, like most business owners, that the point of pride in a business is to be able to say, I did this all myself.
Mm,
I built this myself, and it's all on me. And that's a load of crap. There's nowhere else in life that we actually practice this. If you want to play tennis, you get a partner. If you want to play cards, you get a partner. If you want to go hiking, generally you get a partner. You get somebody else you do. We do all kinds of things in life. We have babies. We do so many things with partners. And then you get into business. Well, good luck with that. You're on your own. I mean, it's utter nonsense, but it's some kind of point of pride that we've walked into that you're somehow less of a human being or less of a business owner or less powerful if you say, I would love to have community. So we built 3 to 5 clubs around this statement. 3 to 5 clubs are built around the idea that it's the only place in business where you can say three magic words. I don't know,
mm.
or I am scared, or I need help. Where do we go to do that? We can't do it with our customers because they think we're rugged individualists. Can't do it with our employees. They think we're rugged individuals. Can't even do it with your spouse because now they thought you knew what you were doing, and now there's two of you who aren't sleeping. So we need a place where we can actually say, I don't know. And I'll give you the most powerful example. 18 years ago, when we started the 3 to 5 clubs, in our first meeting, we had a guy do what we call bottlenecks. We have bottlenecks in every meeting where people get up and say, hey, I don't know, or I'm scared, or this is what I'm confused, or I need help. And he said, I think it was a Tuesday. And he says, I think I'm going out of business on Friday. So I need help figuring out if I'm going out of business on Friday. So we spent 5 minutes, wasn't it long, and figured out that the guy just didn't understand cash flow. He actually had quite a bit of cash coming in, but it wasn't going to come in by Friday. He couldn't pay his payroll. He had 4 people and he couldn't pay him. So he just thought, well, I must be done. So we helped educate him on that. We got him a 2 week bridge loan. He got his payroll. He got his receivables in. And today, 18 years later, this guy goes to Budapest once a year for a month, and he takes a day a week off every month. And he still owns this business, and now it's like 25 people. And he saved his business because he got into community, because he wasn't afraid to say, I can't figure this all out by myself. I was a golfer, and I was like an 18 to 20 handicap for 20 years. And then I got a coach. I got into community and I had somebody else look at my life and I got down to a two handicap. I'd never gotten there by myself. So it's one of the biggest problems we have in business is I'm afraid to let anybody know that I don't have it all figured out. Well, buddy, you are with everybody else. Nobody does.
What's one practical step any company can take tomorrow morning to move towards a participation-driven culture?
Yeah. To move toward a participation driven culture is the first thing that the owner has to do or the CEO has to do is believe that everybody is smart and motivated, not just him and not
Mm.
just the managers. And then be surprised when the few aren't, because there are a few who aren't motivated, but you can move them along. People raise themselves to our lowest expectation of them. And there have been studies done where two companies, one believes everybody's smart and motivated, the other believes everybody's stupid and lazy. And then they look at the people in the companies, everybody's smart and motivated in this one, everybody's stupid and lazy in that one. You get what you intend,
Yeah,
not what you hope for. So the first thing is to believe that everybody is smart and motivated, and then to instill this practice we call distributed decision making. It's also distributed leadership. And it's very simple. It's built on the idea managers tell, leaders ask. Distributed decision making is built on asking. Okay, people, do you see a problem? No, we don't. Okay, well, let me point you, let me ask you enough questions to get you where, oh, okay, we see the problem. Okay, what should we do about it? I don't know because the managers always told us what to do. I'm going to teach you how to figure this out. I'm going to train you in how to solve these things and map the processes and do all that. It's asking to the with training in mind so that you can distribute the leadership and distribute the decision making. The biggest problem managers make is they distribute tasks. Do this, do this, do this, do this, do this, but they don't distribute responsibility. That you are truly responsible for the task and the outcome, and you're going to bring me the results. Leaders will always distribute both the task and the responsibility. So distributed leadership, distributed decision making is the core practice behind a participation age company.
yeah, that
Everybody's making decisions, not just managers. And they're not making them in vacuums. It's actually safer because you got 7 or 10 people on a team making a decision instead of one manager going off by themselves buying software.
that's huge.
It's huge.
You spend decades predicting where work is headed, and you've been right again and again. What do you think the next 5 to 10 years of work will look like?
Well, about 2 or 3 years ago, some futurist did some analysis and said something like 15 of the next 20 jobs that will be created, we don't even know what they are. We know what five of them, they haven't been created yet. We got those five. Those are going to be created soon. The other 15, we don't know what they are. And
Hmm.
that's the future of work is we don't know where it's going. One of the problems we have in business is that we think we're supposed to know where everything's going and be able to forecast 5, 10, 20 years out. I think we will find that as work becomes more complex, not more complicated, but more complex in that there's so many more variables,
Mhm.
that the future of work will be including a lot more people to get input on the decisions. And I believe management will be less from the top down and more from the edges in, not from the bottom up, because that's still hierarchical. It'll be much more flat, and it'll be the people way out on the edges who are in touch with the customers. And people will be asking them, hey, what decisions need to be made? You tell us because
Mm.
you're actually in touch with what's going on in the world around you. So the center will be more of a strategy place and less of a decision-making place. It will gather all the information from the edges and it will gather decisions and it will simply put it in the context of the bigger picture for everybody in a company.
What excites you most about the future of entrepreneurship?
Again, I think it's because the variable nature of what's happening, the lack of certainty in the world around us creates entrepreneurs. It frees people up to actually be entrepreneurial. Before the industrial age, something like 90% of all free people, all free families owned their own business. It's in our DNA to be entrepreneurial. And the industrial age took that away from us. And I think with technology and the internet and apps and all these other things that are making uh, power and information and knowledge more accessible, You can become an influencer. There's so many things you can do that you couldn't have done 20 years ago. And I think that will just continue to be accelerated. And just to give you one example of why that uncertainty is actually a good thing, during COVID and when people started getting fired for not wearing masks and other things, huge uncertainty, the rate of entrepreneurship in the US almost doubled
Hmm.
under that uncertainty. Because people are saying, wait a minute, I had a comfortable life showing up at work and not using my brain, but is that really what I might die someday? Is that
Hmm.
really what I want? And I think uncertainty will force more of that. There are a lot of stories of people who got fired who ended up doing really incredible entrepreneurial things and they had to get forced into the uncertainty. I think we'll have more of it show up on our doorstep in a way that we will see that this is exciting. Let me go chase my dream.
For some founders listening to this who feel overworked, overwhelmed, or on a treadmill, what's the simplest first step they can take to reclaim control and start
Yeah.
building a life-giving business?
Yeah. So we teach principles, practices, and tools. We never teach theory or philosophy. Principles, practices, and tools. Here's the principle that that person needs: eat the elephant one bite at a time. That's the principle. So the practice would be asking yourself this question: is what I'm doing right now the highest and best use of my time? Or could somebody else be doing this if I trained them? And then the tool would be to simply take one day or really 5 days in a row and do a yes and no column under the question, is this the highest and best use of my time? So I'm doing a report right now. All right. Yes or no? Is this the highest and best use of your time? Or somebody else could actually be trained to do this. And you do that with every activity you're doing, driving, everything you're doing for a whole day or really a whole week. And you'll find out that 90+% of the things you're doing are not the highest and best use of your time. Somebody else could do those things. There's things that you could do that nobody else could do if you had your time back. And then you pick one. You eat the elephant one bite at a time. What is the first one of those many things that I shouldn't be doing? And how do I put that on somebody else's plate? And how long will that take me? So that's the principle, practice, and tool methodology that we use.
Perfect. Chuck, this has been incredibly valuable. Where can people learn more about your books, your advisory work, and the global 3 to 5 clubs?
So 3to5club.com, the number three, TO, the number five club, 3to5club.com. We have a resources tab there that show them all the resources we have. And then they can also go to chuckblakeman.com, Blakeman, chuckblakeman.com. And then the third place is if they just want to email us, grow at Crankset Group or grow at 3to5club.com. Either one will get them to us.
We'll include all your links in the description. Chuck, thank you again for joining us.
Marco, it's wonderful to be with you, my friend. Have a great rest of your day. Keep
Thank you.
going.
Thank you very much. Elevate yourself. Empower others. Welcome to Coach Approach Podcast.